Of course, originally planned to have these blocks all next to each other, and then I was going to add more top and bottom, but I feel like they're kind of busy. And so I think I'm going to separate them with sashing, which will also give me some extra height. So right now that is what I'm working on, is cutting out sashing pieces, and then I'll put it up here on the board and we'll see how it goes. This is one of the problems with doing things without a pattern, is you don't know what you're going to get until you kind of get it. But it's also kind of fun because you can change things as you go and you're like, oh, I don't like that as much, so I'll do this instead. It's kind of a fun creative process. So for cutting my borders, I'm doing 3.5 inch, or sashing, I'm doing 3.5 inch sashing. And I saw somebody once do this, I wish I could remember where, so that you're not constantly having to straighten up your strip as you're cutting. You do several cuts at once, the width of that. So like I'm doing 3, which would be 10.5 inches for my 3.5 inches 3 times. And so I cut a section that is 10.5 inches completely lined up with my square. And so I know these are all square. And so now I just need to go back to the 7-inch line. Line it up on, oops, both the lines so I know it's nice and square. And then I can cut that. And then I go to the 3.5 inch. Line it up along the bottom as well. And cut that. And then I can cut the next section. I can do the same thing. So right now I'm going to cut out my pieces for the sashing. Normally I don't necessarily do this many layers at once, but I'm going to right now. Okay, so just trimming off the sewage edge. And then, again, if I had a pattern, I'd be cutting these 12.5 inches because that's what my blocks should be, but they actually came out more like 12.25, so I am doing them for the size that they are, not for the size that they should be. Okay, I have these strips. I'm going to go set them up on my board. Okay, so there it is with the sashing. You can see I've put up some red scraps and some green scraps. And of course you can see it kind of looks like it would have white there with the design board showing through. Not sure which color I'm going to go with yet. I suppose I also have some more of the gnome fabric. I could put little gnomes there. Let's see how that looks. So there we go. Green, red, white, or gnomes. Now I just have to decide, and then I'm going to measure and see how much border I would need to make it as tall as the 2 tall ones on the side. I'm not sure if I'll use the black sashing on the top and bottom or if I will do something else. So that'll probably be decided after I make measurements. My first thing on my agenda today is actually fixing the top edge of this block. I don't know why this is so far out of whack, but as you can see, the holly just goes right uphill and goes off the edge, and that really kind of bugs me. So I have another piece here that I'm hoping will be a little bit straighter, so I'm going to swap those. That's my first thing. And then second, I've been working on the border that I want to do on the top and bottom. You can see I have that done here. So the next part will be getting these blocks. Not sure if I'm going to put them all together as one and then quilt the whole thing, or if I'm going to do it in pieces. So I need to decide that, but either way, get it together and then measure from top to bottom to see how close that is to my tall skinny ones. I'm guessing I'm going to want to put a border or two in between those, and I just need to make sure I have space for it and see how it all fits together. So this is currently where I'm at. I've got my pieces set up and I have cut out my border pieces. Keith and I had a big disagreement on the sashing, the cornerstones here, but I found this fabric. I bought this at the quilt store and we both like it, so got that resolved. I did get a top border made for this area. When I laid it out, I realized I might actually want that to go all the way across over the top of the tall skinny ones. So I'm going to put the middle section or the main section together, and then I'm going to see if that looks like I need to repiece it so that I get a longer section to kind of cover the whole thing and just kind of encase it and make it go together better. Can't think of the word I want right now. Anyway, make it cohesive. That's probably what I'm looking for. So that's where I'm at, and I'm just busy putting these border pieces on the main blocks and getting them done so I can get the main section done. Okay, so I did rows, and then I'm going to put or columns, I guess, and then I'm going to put them together. And I just realized looking at it that I put the little couple down here. They had been up there. So I have to decide if I care enough to take that out and redo it or not. I think I'm probably going to. Unsewing is certainly not my favorite thing to do. Usually when I've realized I make an error, I tend to look at it and then I have to make a decision. Is this going to bother me later? Because some things, honestly, they're just not worth fixing. They're okay and nobody's going to see them, or it's not something that really bothers you. Some mistakes you do need to fix because they are really important for getting your seam allowance right or for matching up something, or it's something that stands out a lot. This one, I'm sure nobody else would notice. It doesn't really matter, but I look at it, and as I looked at it on my design wall, it's like, yeah, that bugs me. I think every time I see my quilt, I'm going to think that was supposed to be up there. And so that is my determining factor in deciding, yes, it's worth unsewing. I'm not sure exactly how I made this error because I was trying to do one little section at a time so that I didn't mix things up, but somehow I did it. I guess it's easy to do, even when you think you're paying attention sometimes. So anyway, just gonna unsew this line, and then I'm gonna have to unstitch the other side so that I can flip these two blocks around. At least it's not a huge amount, and I'm glad I noticed it at this point, because if I'd had the whole middle section together, I would have been very hesitant to do this. Even though I know it would probably bug me and I would probably see it all the time, I would think, not sure it would be worth the effort to unstitch multiple seams, especially long ones, just to fix it. So this is pretty quick. It's pretty short, and it is only 2 seams that I have to unstitch. Okay, got that straightened back up. Little couples on the top, little guy on the sleds down back there, and so now I can actually put these columns together and have the main section done. So I have my 2 sections here that I'm putting together. So the important thing is to match up where the sashing meets, where you have that intersection between the black and the green, this will stand out if it is off. So I definitely want to be careful matching those points, and you can see the seam allowance goes in opposite directions. This one goes this way, this one goes this way, so they kind of nest together. So they kind of smoosh in there, and then you can pin it. And so that will help keep those where they need to be. And I'll do the same thing down here because it's another intersection with the green and the black together. And again, that just kind of smooshes in there. And then I pin it. And so I do each of the intersections first and the ends, making sure they're nice and square. And then I'll go back and do the blocks. And if one is just slightly larger than the other, I'll ease it in and pin it so that it matches up nicely. If one is a little larger, not just a tiny, tiny bit, but I guess none of these really, they're all pretty much the same size, but sometimes you'll get one that you're wanting to ease in and it's definitely a little floppy on this side. So if you do that, you'll want to do the baggier piece, the larger piece on the bottom, because the sewing machine will actually ease in a little bit of the fabric. And so you can kind of fudge that, as long as it's not too big. If it gets too big, then you need to redo something. Anyway, so I'm gonna get this all pinned and then I'll get this first one together. Okay, I have the top done. I really like how it came out. So now I need to get it quilted. I do have my backing fabric. It'll be mostly the poinsettias. I have some of the holly as a strip in the center of it to make it wide enough. Hopefully, it's just barely wide enough, so we'll see how that works. So that's my backing, and now I have to buy batting. So I'm kind of stuck in a holding pattern until I get batting. This is a completely silly thing, but for Christmas, one of my favorite things is nativity scenes. And when we were doing construction on this house, we were living in a tent at Christmas time, and we didn't have any of our Christmas stuff available. My daughter and I had gone Christmas shopping, and I decided we needed to make our own nativity scene. So see, we have the little bear there supposed to represent baby Jesus. So that's Mary, and Joseph is serenading her. And then we have the three wise men with their gifts: banana, pot of water, and a drumstick. And of course the fierce herdsmen guarding their sheep. So anyway, that's my silly nativity scene. It's in my sewing room because Keith thinks it's really dumb, and I love having it up. It makes me smile every time I see it. Hopefully it'll make you smile too.